Hi, my lovely Kaleides. How are you doing today? Today, Kareemah and I are going to be talking about the relationships in Fruits Basket and how they help the characters in the manga overcome emotional trauma and loss. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the manga if you haven't read it or if you haven't watched the anime. Basically, what Fruits Basket is about, if you've never seen it, is there's this girl called Toru Honda. When you first start reading the manga or first start watching the anime, she lives in a tent and she meets the Soma family. And then she quickly finds out that the Soma family is cursed with turning into each member turns into a different animal from the Chinese zodiac if they're touched by the opposite sex. So it's a really good manga and anime. It's very enjoyable, but there's also some very serious moments. There's some very deep reflections of how trauma affects people and how healthy relationships with friends or lovers or just love will help people overcome any emotional trauma. So now I'm going to go ahead and tell you, well, I basically introduced Toru to you and I basically introduced you to the anime and manga. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kareemah so she can tell you a little bit more about Toru's friendships.
So, a big part of one of Toru's biggest relationships is her relationship to her friends, Arisa and Saki. They've been friends since middle school, and in Shoujo, girl friendships are like a big part of Shoujo. But what I really like about their relationship is that, in a way, they're all outcasts, and how they all got together and became friends in the first place was because of Toru and her mother's kindness. You know, they all found Toru. They all found Toru. They both found Toru when they were at their like darkest parts of their life, um, and I really like. I just really like the relationship. But I also like is that unlike some other shojo, the best friends they're not just relegated to how they relate to Toru. Like a big part of their characterization is their relationship to Toru, but they do have lives outside of Toru in a way. We find out about Saki's family. We find out about her brother. We find out her relationship to her psychic powers, because she's a psychic. And with Arisa, we find out about her dad and her current situation and how she had to turn that around. And also, um, she also ends up getting in a romantic relationship herself with one of the Somas. I'm not going to tell you because that character is very much a spoiler. But there's plenty of chapters where Toru is not even there, and it's just those girls themselves. And so, like, there's more to their character than just being those are Toru's friends. But a big plus to this manga, I think, is the relationship between all three girls.
I agree because I remember reading it and I remember just enjoying the friendships. I'm more of a romance person. I know you know that about me, but in this one, I really like the friendship between the girls because it really showed how they bonded together, how they helped each other, and lifted each other up and got each other out of a really dark place in their lives because with Toru, she lost her mom. So she had a lot of trouble really accepting that and moving forward. And with the other two girls, Arisa was a former Yankee and she really looked up to Toru's mom as the crimson butterfly. And then with Saki, she was bullied because she had psychic powers and people saw her as different and didn't want to accept her for who she was. So those things always were very important for me while reading because it really helped me see the importance of treating people well and the importance of friendships and how friendships, healthy friendships, mind you, will really help a person grow and move forward in life.
Yeah, and I think Toro's relationship with Arisa and Saki also show, shows how she's the type of person to never judge a book by its cover. You know, you look
Yeah,
at Saki and you can see all the goth aesthetic and the darkness, and you think, oh, she's weird. You see Arisa and think she's a delinquent. You know, oh, she's never going to amount to anything. But Toru clearly saw past that, and a lot of that has to deal with the fact of who her mother was. Her mother was a crimson butterfly, and that affected how she sees people and how she's able to be open to so many people.
yeah, and that's another thing that's really good about the manga. This is actually one of my favorites. I say that a lot because I have a lot of favorites, but I remember this is another one where I had all of the volumes before I sold them. Honestly, now I have to get them all back. But it's a good story because it's about a story of acceptance, like how broken people can find acceptance from the right people, even though they get rejected from people who don't have the emotional intelligence to give them what they need in a relationship. So it's kind of a mirror of life, right? Like there's some people who are going to treat you bad, and there's some people who might abuse you emotionally, and they might be really close to you. But you can go out and you can find other people who will accept you for who you are, who will love you, who will support you, who will really help you grow into a better person. And you don't have to worry about those people who have their own problems. You can reach out to those people if those people want to come around and want to be able to work through their issues. But if they don't, you have friends that you can go to, and you don't really need toxic people in your life.
True, true.
So, are we going to talk about her relationship with Yuki and how that was?
Oh yes, her relationship with Yuki. So her Yuki's relationship with Toru is very interesting because at the start of the manga, you know, when Toru meets Yuki and Kyo, it seems like just a typical love triangle kind of situation. Like, which boy is she gonna choose? It gets pretty clear, not even halfway through, who's in the game. So her relationship, her relationship with Yuki does kind of change a bit, and you find out more through Yuki's backstory. So a bit about Yuki is that he is born in the year of the rat, which in the old Chinese zodiac legends, the rat was the first one to make it to the feast. The rat is considered to be the smartest. The rat is basically the golden child of all the zodiac, and I believe it's actually stated that it's been a long time since the rat has been reincarnated too. So it's a big deal when he comes along. So in a way, he's almost kind of put it on a pedestal, but he's also very much treated horribly by the god of the zodiac, and also is distanced from the rest of the zodiac and people in general. He's basically been shackled literally his entire life by Akito, by his parents, specifically his mother. So he's never really had like true relationships before. And so what makes his relationship special with Toro is that Toro is like the first person he truly opens up towards. And it's this relationship with her that lets him be able to open up and form friendships with other people. Because like I said earlier with Naruto and Saki, how there's plenty of chapters where Toru isn't there. At some point, Yuki makes friends outside of Toru. He becomes the president of the student council, and he's in charge. You know, he becomes friends with all the student council members. So he makes friends outside of Toru, but it was his relationship with Toru that allowed him to open up to other people. And like I said, pretty quickly you realize that Endgame is Kyo and Toru. So it becomes clear that Yuki never really saw Toru in a romantic sense. He saw her more of like the mother he never had, because his mother was never a good mother. So Toru was kind of the closest he ever got to that feeling.
Yeah, I agree with that because I was doing some research just to refresh myself with everything because it's been a long time since I've read it. But yeah, when I first started watching it a while ago, you think that Yuki was in love with Toru, but Yuki wasn't in love with Toru. Yuki saw, again, like you were saying, Toru as a mother figure, and that was again the closest thing that he had to a mother, because his mother was so reluctant to care for him because he was the cursed rat. He was the cursed rat.
Yeah, she treated him more like not accessory, but like he was her meal ticket.
Yeah,
His existence brought his her and her husband. They got brought into the inner circle of the Somas because the Soma clan is so big that to be brought into the inner circle, you have to be on the Zodiac. But because he's the rat, he's the most prized. That elevated his family status even higher. So yeah, that's more like that's what really she treated him as.
yeah. And another thing that I really found interesting about Yuki, other than the fact that he was like basically the golden child, was his relationship with Kyo. And even though they're the rat and the cat, and cats and rats don't get along or whatever, but you can still see that they cared about each other, like more and more, and through the story, as the story progressed, you can see that they become more and more like friends. They might not be the best friends, but you can see that the animosity between them that was basically caused by the curse is kind of loosened more and more because they spend more time together, and because basically Toru is the catalyst of change in the manga. She's the one who comes and brings hope and light to the family and to the members of the family, and really changes their lives. And she goes ahead and she changes her life as well through that. So I always thought that was beautiful as well.
Yeah, like a big part of Kyo and Yuki's relationship is that they don't realize it, but they basically been jealous of each other for the longest time. Kyo was jealous because Yuki was considered part of the Soma family. He he was set for life. Unlike Kyo, he wasn't, you know, outcasted. And for Yuki, Kyo had the perfect life because Kyo is able to was able to make have relationships or at least talk to people outside of family a lot easier. He was able to kind of let his guard down a lot easier than Yuki. So they were both always jealous of each other and never really realized it.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about Toru's relationship with Kyo, because who was the first person that Toru met was Shigure, right? Because he found her when she was in the tent.
Yes. Okay. No. So yes, she was leaving the tent. She was on her way to school, and she happened to like cross the path that was right in front of their house. And she stopped by the house because she saw like a little paper mache like those things that Shigure made. And
Yeah.
Shigure came out and he saw her, and that's when they started talking. So she did meet Shigure first, then she met Yuki.
Yes. Okay. So to go on to talk about Kyo. So basically Kyo is the cursed cat, and the cat in the story was the one who was excluded because of the rat. The rat told the cat a different day. So when the banquet happened, the cat was left out because he didn't know that that was the right day and the original like Chinese zodiac story. So in the case of Kyo, he was treated like an outsider. His mom went through a lot of emotional trauma to the point where she couldn't take it anymore, and she made a rash decision and left him alone. He was taken in by one of the other somas. I think it was another soma that took him in, if I'm not mistaken.
He is a Soma. He's let's see. I don't know why I cannot think of his name, but it's his master. He is a Soma because that his master grandfather was the previous cat, so he is a Soma as well.
Yeah, and it was. I always liked Kyo because Kyo was, I think, one of the deepest character to me. even more deep than Toru, because Toru is a pretty deep character, but Kyo to me was the most interesting and deeper because of how much trauma that he had to endure because of what he was saddled with, which is no fault of his own. And when Kyo meets Toru, you can see that Kyo slowly starts to open up. He slowly starts to let go of the past. He slowly starts to see Toru as someone that he loves and can love. And when Toru begins to find out or begins to realize that she is in love with Kyo, she has a big problem trying to let him into her heart because her mom was a big star of her life. So falling in love with Kyo to Toru meant that she was effectively pushing her mom's memory out of her heart, which terrified her. But on the other hand, the more and more and more her feelings grew, she really started to realize that there was room in her heart for both people.
Yeah, I think the first big turning point in Kyo and Toru's relationship was when she found out about his, I guess, true form, his other form. When she found out about his other form and she saw it and she didn't react with disgust or, or anything like that, and she accepted it, I think that was like the first turning point of the relationship. And I think it was after that point where he started to be even kind of more affectionate in Kyo's own way of being affectionate towards her.
I just thought it was really just a really pretty, like the relationships of the anime and the manga are so pretty and deep, and you see all of these characters have different emotional traumas from their families, from the curse that again is no fault of their own and everything. But to see how Toru comes into their lives and really just changes their lives, and because she changes their lives, she finds emotional stability after that and is able to let go of her trauma as well. It's a really good shoujo manga. It's really good if you want to be able to read something that is more adult and it's more passionate. But it also has the lovely shoujo tropes that a shoujo fangirl would love.
Yeah, like we may talk more about this in another video if we ever do another video about Fruits Basket. But what I love about this manga so much is that it takes such a fantastical concept of people turn to animals if they hug someone of the opposite sex and manage to talk about actual like real world issues like familial and spousal abuse, bullying, just homelessness. Like it just to talk about so many different issues, and the authors that just take such a fantastic concept and use it in such a way that makes everything grounded still.
Yeah, and that to me was always why it was one of my high ranking favorites, because like you said, it was taking all these real world problems and showing them in a serious light, but not heavy. It wasn't heavy. It was more bittersweet at times than heavy. So it was a real artistry of the manga artist, and I don't know if he wrote it too or he did both the art or she. Sorry, my bad.
When it comes to shoujo, 90% of the time it's a she.
Okay.
It's like you can't go wrong with thinking one.
Back in shoujo history, like back early when shoujo first started, there was a lot of men doing shoujo, which is kind of weird. I think Sailor Moon was the first female shoujo manga artist. So that's why I said that, because I was watching another episode talking about the history of shoujo, and that's something that I learned back then. But now modern, there's a lot of female artists.
Yeah.
But basically my closing thoughts this is a manga and an anime that really holds up. I really haven't seen the reboot, honestly. I think I watched one episode. Um, I think I heard that it follows the manga more closely, so I'm interested to see how how much better it is and how they improved it. But
It does.
I
I can, as someone who has watched it, I haven't watched the whole thing because I am so behind on anime. It's not even funny. But I have watched like a pretty significant chunk, and it does follow the manga almost to a T in a way. And so I will say it's a way better adaptation than the original anime.
oh, okay, that's good. That's good to know. And again, I really just like the portrayals of emotional trauma and loss, but I also really like the overcoming spirit of being having people in your life that are good to you and love you and support you and help you to move forward. So that's always a triumphant thing for me because, we all have our times where we have a lot of emotional trauma and things happen to us and things happen and we experience loss and everything else. But it's also really important to have a healthy community of friends and loved ones and people who are there for you and help you navigate that.
Yeah, to me, I just like for manga that does have a lot of dark moments and sad moments. There's still this undercurrent of hope throughout it,
Yeah.
and that hope helps you get through like the saddest parts of the manga. Because I'm not the type of person to cry like at manga or anime. Just in general for entertainment, I just usually don't cry. But I will have to say that like Fruit Baskets has got me pretty close to tears, a couple of times.
Yeah.
Mostly in the latter half when everything kind of goes to hell, in the latter half of the manga.
So we hope you really enjoyed this video. We wanted to just briefly talk about the relationships of Fruits Baskets and why we really enjoyed the anime and the manga and how we really loved how the portrayal of most emotional trauma and loss was handled in a beautiful way. And it wasn't like heavy handed and it wasn't like, super depressing. It was bittersweet, but also filled with hope, like you said, Kareemah. So I'm really glad that you joined me here today, Kareemah. Thank you for your time. Thank you for talking with me again.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we're going to see you all in our next video in about 2 weeks. And we're going to let you know then what we're going to be talking about. So, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Shoujo Fangirl. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe, as I would really appreciate it, as it would really help my channel. If you are interested in a good book, please check out my book, Heart and Soul. And it's available on Amazon, Kobo, Apple Books, and Scribed. The links are in the description below. As always, I love you all. Have a blessed day, and be blessed in Jesus' name. See you in the next video.